The sun blazed down on the group of explorers as they stepped out of the time machine and onto the dusty ground of ancient Egypt. They were surrounded by workers, hauling massive stone blocks and shouting orders to each other. The explorers stood in awe as they gazed upon the Great Pyramid of Giza, still under construction. The leader of the group, a tall and imposing figure, surveyed the scene with a critical eye. He was dressed in the garb of a pharaoh, complete with a headdress and ornate jewelry. His name was Ramses, and he was a renowned time traveler, having journeyed to many different eras throughout history. Ramses turned to his companions, a motley crew of scientists and adventurers, and spoke in a commanding voice. "We must be careful not to disrupt the timeline," he warned. "We are here merely as observers, to witness the construction of this magnificent structure." The explorers nodded in agreement, and they set off to explore the site. They mingled with the workers, watching as they used ropes and pulleys to move the massive stone blocks into place. The air was thick with dust and sweat, and the sound of chisels and hammers filled their ears. As the day wore on, the explorers grew tired and thirsty. They sought refuge in the shade of a nearby tent, where they were greeted by a group of friendly workers. They were offered cool water and fresh bread, and they sat down to rest their weary legs. It was then that they heard a commotion outside. They rushed to the entrance of the tent, where they saw a group of men approaching. They were dressed in the garb of rival builders, and they carried weapons. The explorers watched in horror as the two groups clashed, their swords and axes glinting in the sun. The workers fought bravely, but they were outnumbered. The explorers knew they had to act fast. Ramses sprang into action, drawing his own sword and charging towards the fray. His companions followed suit, using their knowledge of modern combat techniques to gain the upper hand. Together, they fought off the attackers and saved the workers from certain death. As the dust settled, the explorers were hailed as heroes. They were given gifts of gold and precious jewels, and they were invited to a feast in their honor. They sat at a long table, surrounded by friendly faces and delicious food. But as the night wore on, they began to notice something strange. The workers around them were growing increasingly agitated, muttering in hushed tones and glancing nervously at the pyramid. Ramses sensed that something was amiss. He approached one of the workers and asked, "What is wrong? Why are you all so uneasy?" The worker looked at him with fear in his eyes. "It is said that the pyramid is cursed," he whispered. "That those who build it will suffer a terrible fate." Ramses felt a chill run down his spine. He knew that the workers were right to be afraid. The pyramid had been built with the blood and sweat of thousands of workers, and it was said to be haunted by the spirits of the dead. But it was too late to turn back now. The explorers had come too far to abandon their mission. They resolved to stay the night and witness the completion of the pyramid. As the night wore on, they heard strange noises coming from the pyramid. They saw shadows moving in the darkness, and they felt a cold breeze blowing through the camp. But they stood their ground, determined to see the project through to the end. And then, just as the first rays of dawn were lighting up the sky, they saw it. The final stone block was being lifted into place, and the pyramid was complete. The workers cheered and hugged each other, and the explorers felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. But as they turned to leave, they saw something that made their blood run cold. The pyramid was glowing with an otherworldly light, and they could hear the sound of chanting coming from within. They realized too late that they had been lured into a trap, and that the pyramid was not what it seemed. With a sense of dread, they stepped back into the time machine and prepared to return to their own era. But as they did, they felt a jolt and a flash of light. When they emerged on the other side, they realized with horror that they had been transported to a distant future, where the world was unrecognizable and the pyramid stood as a monument to their folly. The explorers were trapped in time, forever doomed to wander the earth as ghosts, haunting the very pyramid they had helped to build.